What's going on, guys? It's your boy Vince. I'm out here, and the thing is, a lot of these gigs I go on are so far away, and I'm in the car for such a long time, I get bored just talking to myself and listening to music. So I came up with the idea that I was just going to take some of this time and answer questions that you guys have for me. And so this is the very first version of Road Stories. Check it out.
Let's go!
So currently I am on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, and I am going across the eastern shore to play for my good friends at 3 Knots Tap House over in Onancock. And I figured I've got some time, so I'm going to answer some questions. Alright, so the first question comes from Teresa, and it says, what got you into a career of singing, and then what made you say you wanted a band? Well, the first question is this. So I had been playing churches and coffee houses for years, and I was happy doing ministry and singing out and doing things. But what happened was, right about the time I got married, I lost my job, and I didn't want to be that guy that was newlywed, just sitting on the couch, being a bum. So I contacted my buddy Derek Smith, a longtime good friend of mine, and he was playing out in bars and restaurants, and I called him and I said, hey man, do you guys know anybody that's looking for some new talent? And he said, yeah man, I got you. So he called up my first 5 venues and got me out there playing. And then what made me say I wanted a band? I had always wanted a band, and early on, if you knew me 13 years ago when we started, we actually had some shows as a full band. But what happened was it was much cheaper to book Vince as a one-man band than it was to book the full band. And so people started going with that, and of course I needed the money, so I took the gigs. And then it was constantly just, hey man, we're going to go ahead and book you as a solo act instead of the band. And then finally what happened was, coming out of COVID, Jason Bruner was kind enough to go ahead and get us booked out at the beach stages, and then everything just took off from there. So the next question comes from Deshaun. He says, how did you ever get over stage fright, or did you ever have any? And the answer to that is simple. I have never gotten over stage fright. I have never in my life gotten on stage and not been nervous. I am nervous every time I step in front of a microphone. And that's the God's honest truth. Singing music is a very personal thing. You go out there and that music is a part of you. And you are putting yourself out there every time you sing. And it is very soul crushing when people don't like that. And that is always a constant thought in my mind when I go out to sing. But one of my musical heroes that I grew up listening to, his name is Taylor Hicks. You may remember me, won season 5 of American Idol. What he said in his autobiography is that if you dare to pick up a microphone, you had better have something to say. And that phrase just hit me, because if you're going to get out there and sing, it needs to be for a reason. You need to be out there trying to touch people's lives or make them feel better in that moment. And that's what I try and do when I get on a microphone. I don't do it to try and be famous. I don't do it to try and be the most popular guy in the area. I do it because I enjoy it, and if I can make people feel better for even a moment, that's how it is. But I never get rid of it. I just go along with it. That healthy fear will always make you work better. So my suggestion is, if you're trying to get over it, try and find somebody in the crowd that you can connect with. And once you get that smile, or you get that nod, or they're mouthing the words, that will put you in a different place musically. So the next question is from Paul, and he says, what is your musical pedigree or training? What is your first instrument? And tell us about your recorded works. Well, my pedigree or my training, I began as a trumpet player at Western Branch Middle School in 1994. I played that all the way up until my sophomore year of high school. And then when my best friend Andy at the time, which is Derek's younger brother, he quit band because he was in a band with Derek and they had gigs on Friday nights. Well, when you were in varsity band, you had to be in marching band. And he couldn't do that because he had the gigs, so he quit. Well, then me being, this goofy kid, I was like, well, I don't want to be in the band. It's not cool to be in the marching band. So I quit, and I took a beginner guitar class my sophomore year of high school and learned a couple chords and learned the different things. And then got back into band my junior year because the band director, Mr. Burtz, started up a jazz band. Well, I went in there and auditioned on both guitar, thinking I was just amazing, and trumpet, and went in there and completely bombed the jazz audition for guitar. I mean, it was horrible. I didn't know chords. I didn't know any of that stuff. I don't know what made me think that I could go in there and do that, but it's just when you're a cocky junior in high school, you're like, yeah, I got this. Ain't no thing. So I bombed horribly, but he was like, well, I'll let you in on trumpet, but you didn't get in on guitar. He said, but if you're getting in on jazz, I have to have you in varsity band. And I was like, all right, cool, let's go do it. So I did that, went back to trumpet all the way through high school. And then when I went to college, I went to Baptist Bible College in Springfield, Missouri, and I actually went as a pastoral major, not music related. But then I got there and I kept going with the band because I had played for the last 8 years of my life. And I said, well, I'm going to keep playing the band because I love it. Well, I got there and realized there was so much about music I didn't understand. I added an associate's in music onto the bachelor's degree I was already working on. And about a year into that, I ran into a scheduling conflict and I was like, man, I really need to figure out what I'm going to do. And so I prayed about it and I was like, God, what do you really want me to do? And the door just opened up and it was music. The answer was clearly music. And then after that, everything I put my hand on, I could play. I could just do it. It was like this skill that was deep down inside of me. I was able to just pick things up and work on it, and it just came to me. So I did that all the way up through college, graduated with a Bachelor's of Art in Church Music and Bible, to be very specific. And then everything else is knowledge from the streets, if you want to say it that way. Playing with other musicians, studying great musicians, just picking up stuff where I can, bits and pieces of what works in what cases. And so that's where a lot of my training came from. The last thing is about my recorded works. I don't have a whole lot of recorded works. Years ago, when I was doing a lot more original music, I had recorded some stuff, but it never sounded great because I was just another cocky person thinking I could record it all on my own, and it all sounded horrible. So I have some original works, yes, but I have not recorded them. Our next question comes from another great musician in the area, Mr. Steve Force. Do you have an Easy Pass? No. The answer to that is no. I actually just pay per plate as I go through these things, which is really expensive going to all these gigs. I think last year I ended up paying about $13,000 in tolls just for not having an Easy Pass. So, no, the answer is yes. I actually do. I could not survive without it, especially driving everywhere that I do for these gigs. Gotta have one. All right, our next one is from my buddy Tim. He says, top 3 songs that people cover too much, other than the obvious Wagon Wheel. And Tim, I hate you for the fact that you took Wagon Wheel off the board because that is my least favorite song. I don't do it. I didn't do that song. It actually got big right about the time I started playing music and everybody wanted it, and I dodged it for the longest time until it faded away. And those guys at Duck Dynasty put it in an episode of their show, and then it came back with a force, and then everybody wanted to hear it. I still don't do it, but at least it came back with a force. 3 songs that I think are overdone too much. First is probably so many to choose from. It would probably have to be Hotel California. Nothing against it. I'm just not a fan of it. I think everybody covers it because it's one of those bar staples you just have to have. I know the classic guys are going to come after me for not knowing it and not liking it, but Y'all know where my schedule is. Y'all can come at me if you want. Number 2 would probably be Folsom Prison Blues by Johnny Cash. I just think Johnny is one you have to have in your songbook, and whether you like it or not, which I don't, you gotta do a Johnny Cash song, and that's one that everybody just gets. Unfortunately, that's just one that everybody knows, and as soon as you start with it, doom chicka doom chicka doom, they get it. And then number 3, it's the guys from Oasis, and they want Wonderwall. Wonderwall will not go away. You have to have it, and everybody asks for it. And I get it at the weirdest times too. It'll be a time where nobody cares what I'm doing in the room, and I feel like I'm bombing, and then all of a sudden somebody's like, Wonderwall! I'm like, oh, yay. And this does not include my good friends Shauna and Nate, who actually do legitimately want to hear that song all the time. And I know when they show up, I'm going to do that song for them. But yeah, Wonderwall is that song. Now, I give an honorable mention to Freebird only because most people don't actually want to hear Freebird. They just want to be the one to yell out Freebird. So I can't say it's covered by everybody, but people want to request it the most, and that's probably still just as annoying. My man Johnny Law says, why is The Last Dragon the best martial arts movie of all time? I'm glad you asked. Because of the man, the myth, the legend himself, Sho'nuff, the baddest mofo low down around this town. He got something real for you in these hands. I mean, his character was so over the top, it almost makes you want to root for him more than Leroy. Now, Leroy was great. Taimak did an amazing job in that movie. All the other actors did a great job, but Sho'nuff was just so over the top, and he's so quotable. It just makes it the best ever. I mean, you can't beat it. I'm sorry, Bruce Lee fans. You just can't keep up with Sho'nuff. All right, my buddy Dan Reed says, I heard you're the only guy that can transition from swing to straight time. Is this true? No, that is a vicious rumor, and that is set out by people who need me to do that stuff but have never experienced how difficult it is to actually make that transition happen. No, I actively avoid trying to do hard transitions like that. You will understand that because you played with me for so long. But there are just people out there that don't understand how difficult that is, and they're like, just go ahead and do it. And I'm like, yeah, no. All right, and this next one is from my former band director at Western Branch High School, Mr. Charlie Burtz. And he says, why did you give up on trumpet? And that is a very easy answer. It wasn't because I wanted to, it's just because the nature of what I do does not facilitate playing trumpet all the time. Being the guy that is in front of the microphone and playing, and usually accompanying myself on an acoustic guitar or piano, I just don't have the opportunity to play trumpet as much anymore. I have over the years had the opportunity to play trumpet with friends or at church and things like that. But normally as I'm playing out gigs and stuff like that, most of the 13 years of my gigs have been solo acts, and it's hard to take a trumpet out and do it. I know you can do it, and I know I've taken 8 instruments out on stage before, but it just hasn't always had a place. Now, I have talked with my current band lineup at different times about wanting to bring the trumpet in and add another sound to it, and that will probably be coming up in the next year or so. But it's not like I just quit it and said I'm never going back to it. I just haven't had a reason to incorporate it in the show as much. But I will say this is a good thing. My oldest son Logan is now playing trumpet, and so that has given me the opportunity to pick it up, dust off some of the rust, get some of my chops back, and help him through some of the stuff. And then ironically, I shouldn't say ironically because I saw it coming forever ago, this boy is like 98% Vince, and that comes with the ego and everything else. And so when he plays, he just thinks he's the man and he's got it. And he's very good for only having played for 4 months. But sometimes he thinks he's above the station that he's at, and he still's got to work at it. But he's just like his pops. He's just like his daddy-o. You know, he got a lot of vents in him. So I do have the opportunity to work with him on trumpet. So I will probably be bringing the old girl back out in the shows in the next year or so. All right, and our last question comes from Amy. She says, when playing live, is it more difficult to fuse with a band or maintain all the necessary pieces solo? Amy, I'm going to say that it is probably harder to keep all the plates spinning as a solo artist than it is playing with a band. That reason is I always try to keep musicians around me that have got great chops and great instincts, that can feel what's going on and can put all the pieces together. As a solo artist, especially when I'm doing my one-man band thing, I'm responsible for all the different parts that go on. And I'm okay. I'm decent. I've got enough skill to make it sound pretty good. But I'm not amazing at any one thing. When I play with a band, I want guys around me that are going to make the music pop, that are just going to be good. They've got great skills. And if you look at the current lineup of the band right now, everybody that's in there is amazing in a certain area. I have got great instrumentalists and vocalists around me. But when it's me, it's all just me. So as confident as I am in my abilities and what I can do, it's harder to keep all of that going by yourself than it is with a band. Because when you mess up by yourself, you can't blame anybody else. When you mess up in a band, it's like, but you can overplay that the next time and then make it sound even cooler. Victor Wooten said there are no such things as wrong notes. It's the approach to how you play it that really makes it take effect. And so that's kind of why I enjoy playing with a band, is because everybody excels at stuff, and it's like bringing all of these different talented people together to make one sound happen. Well, guys, thank you so much for all of the submissions for this version of Road Stories. I hope you guys found out a little bit more about me and what I do. And we'll probably be doing this again when I've got some longer trips planned out. And I hope you guys are doing well, and I look forward to seeing you guys. And before I go, let me say thank you to all of the support you guys have given me and the band over these last 13 years. We could not possibly do what we do without you guys. So thank you so much for all of that, and look forward to seeing you on the next show.